Welcome to DWBIADDA channel. Please subscribe for latest training videos. Welcome to DWBIADDA channel. Please subscribe for latest training videos.
Guys, so today we're gonna talk about what is Amazon Route 53 and how we can manage our domains in AWS account via Route 53. Okay, so Route 53 is basically a DNS service provided by AWS. So if we go by the definitions given by AWS, it is like Amazon Route 53 is highly available and scalable cloud domain DNS service. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's go ahead and see how it works. Okay, so go to your AWS management console, and under it go to networking and content delivery, and in that go to Route 53. So these all things you can manage through Route 53. You can perform DNS management, traffic management, availability monitoring, and domain registration. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go with get started now. So currently, as you can see, there is no hosted zone has been created in our Route 53. Okay, for that you can go to domains and you can go to register domains. Okay, for this lecture we don't have any registered domain as of now. So what we'll do, we'll take any arbitrary domain name, okay, just for the explanation. Okay, so you can register a domain from here. You can click here, register domain, and suppose if you like to buy a domain for abc.com, okay, so you'll check for it availability if this domain is available in the market or not. So as you can see, it is not available, but what is available is being shown here. You can buy for abc.net, you can buy caremyabc.com and all these. Okay, so you can add your domain, whichever domain you want to buy, you can add to cart, and then go to you will fill your contact details, verify your payment details, and then purchase it. Okay, and one more thing you can do, like suppose if you want to transfer your domain, and suppose you have already bought a domain from different domain provider like namecheap.com, GoDaddy, okay, and you want to transfer that domain to AWS Route 53, you can also do this from here. Okay, you can click domain, transfer domain, and you can just select the operator and everything, and you can go here like this. Okay, domain option, contact details, review and purchase. So we'll go ahead and create a hosted zone. Since we don't have any domain, so we'll create a hosted zone by our own. Okay, we'll give any arbitrary name, abc.com. okay, and create. Our hosted zone has been created, and as you can see, we have taken a random arbitrary domain. We don't have any, so we have taken abc.com, and as we have created a domain, you can see the name servers has been created for our domain, and all these name servers are associated with AWS. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go to create record set. Now suppose I have a subdomain, okay, and suppose it is like example.abc.com, okay, and I want to point it to some instance, like I have one instance, suppose like its public IP is 1.1.1.1. okay, so suppose this is our public IP on which we have hosted our this example.abc.com, and what we want is whenever someone hit example.abc.com, the request goes to this instance. Okay, so we'll type the domain name and select which record for it we want to configure. Okay, you can configure a record, you can configure cname, mx, that is for your smtp configuration, txt, and all these. Okay, so we'll choose a record and we'll point this. Okay, so what it will do, it will point the domain name, this subdomain example.abc.com, to this instance. Okay, now you can configure TTL. TTL is time to live. Suppose it's 3 seconds, and you can go for 60 seconds or double click. Okay, now we have 240 seconds. So what it will do for 240 seconds, okay, there is one caching being processed in DNS. So whenever you hit this URL, okay, so first the request will go to the DNS server, okay, and it will check its cache for like 240 seconds before hitting it to the server on which it is hosted. Okay, so leave it. So if I say it in a simple language, as per definition, TTL is a setting for each DNS record that specifies how long a resolver is supposed to cache the DNS query before the query expires and a new one sends to the. So suppose I'll leave it to 300 seconds. So I have set the expiration of my cache to 300 seconds. Okay, and I'll go to create. Our record has been created. Now we'll talk about more of Route 53. So we have different routing policies, and we'll talk about it one by one. So let's suppose again create domain subdomain test.abc.com, and let's go with a weighted routing policy. Now what is weighted routing policy? I want to show you with a pictorial example. Suppose you have a website that is being configured on 2 instances for high availability. For weighted routing, suppose you have a query that is being requested by a user and you want to distribute the request in somehow that the 30% of the request goes to instance 1 and the 70% of your request goes to instance 2. For these kind of routing policy, you go with the weighted routing policy. So this is how you will configure. So suppose you have test.abc.com and you have this website hosted on 102.103.104.105 on this instance. So we have chosen weighted policy, and now I'll mention the weighing percentage. Okay, suppose now I have mentioned 30. Now 30% of my request for test.abc.com will go to this instance. I will set it a name. Suppose this instance is in Ireland, so I'll give it Ireland. Set ID has been configured. Now I'll go to create. Now again I'll go to create record. Again I'll go for test. This time I'll enter another IP 201.204.203.204, and again I'll go for weighted routing, and this time I'll choose 70. This is, suppose this is in my Oregon region. We have assumed, okay, so we have assumed that our test.abc.com site has been configured on 2 instances. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create. So now you can see our test.abc.com. For that we have 2 A records. Okay, one is this and one is this, and if we scroll down to here, we can see this. The 30% of our request will go to instance which has been in our Ireland region, and the 70% of our request of this website will go to Oregon region. Cool. Now go to create record set. Now we'll talk about what is latency based routing. So for latency based routing, suppose your application is hosted in multiple AWS regions. Okay, as we have talked about here, suppose one is in Oregon and another one is and you want to and you can improve the performance for your users by serving their requests from the AWS region that provides lowest latency. So how we can configure that, we'll see now. Now suppose we have another domain, like we'll take latency.abc.com, and one of our instance is in North Virginia region, 192.168.1.2. we have suppose we have this, our website is been hosted on this instance which is in North Virginia region. Okay, So we'll go to latency based routing. We'll specify the region and we'll choose US East 1 and we'll give it a name North Virginia and we'll go ahead and create it. Now we'll go to create record and again latency.abc.com and I'll suppose the same website has been configured on another instance which is in Mumbai region. Okay, now we'll go with the IP of this 192.168.2.4. okay, we'll again choose latency based routing and we'll specify a region. We'll choose Asia Pacific Southeast 1. Okay, and we'll type it set ID to Mumbai. Create. So we have created a records for latency.abc.com which is hosted on two instances. One is on North Virginia region and another one is on Mumbai region. Okay, so how it will work? So whenever a user which is sitting near in Singapore, so its request will go to the instance which is being hosted in Mumbai region. So whenever a user which is sitting in Singapore, whenever he hit this site, its request will go to the Mumbai instance rather than the instance that is being hosted on North Virginia region to provide better latency. Okay, and same as suppose like a user which is sitting in USA, if he tries to query this website, its request will go to this instance, okay, rather than the Mumbai one. So this is how Route 53 manage latency with this policy, latency based policy. Okay, so I hope you get to understand this. Okay, now again we'll go to, let's go ahead and remove or leave it like this. We'll now go ahead and again create a record set. Now we'll talk about what is failover. Failover, as a name suggests, will create two records. One would be primary and another one would be secondary. So there must be a health check associated with this routing policy. Okay, so what it will do, we will create a health check and it will check a primary instance for our domain, and if the primary instance fails, its request will go to the secondary instance. Okay, so we'll not talk about this in this lecture because we'll have to create a health check, and you can create health check like this. You can go to health check, create health check, you'll give it a name abc.com, and you can either set what you want to monitor. If you want to monitor endpoint, you want to monitor the status of other health checks, okay, or you want to monitor via CloudWatch alarm. Okay, and here you can enter what do you want to monitor. Either you want to monitor a specific IP address or you want to monitor a domain name. Okay, so this is how you can like suppose I want to monitor a domain, so I'll type a domain name. So if there's some other like additional path in your domain, you can enter here. There's an advanced configuration, okay, like this. You can check for like for 3 attempts. After 3 attempts it will mark your domain as a failover. Okay, so these all things you can configure. Okay, we'll go back, go to our hosted zone. So this is how you will configure your failover based routing. Another, you will create one test domain, one domain. Okay, you will specify the instance on which it is being hosted, and then again you'll select a secondary instance. Okay, and you need to again I want to repeat that you need to have a health check associated with this kind of routing policy. Now we go ahead and create a geolocation. So people usually get confused with geolocation and latency based routing. So for latency based routing, we are providing a routing policy such that there would be a less latency in the user experience for our website. But for geolocation, what we define if the request comes from a specific instance and we want to redirect that request to a specific instance. So for that we configure geolocation. So suppose we have a domain geo.abc.com and we'll again select a record type a record, and suppose this is our instance which is in Singapore. We'll give it one name, 192.168.10.11, and I'll give it a set ID of Singapore. What I want my all traffic that is been coming from Canada. Okay, so if my user is from Canada, I want all its requests will go to my this instance which is hosted in Singapore. So what I'll do, I'll select a geolocation, I'll point the instance name on IP address on which my site is being hosted, and then I'll go to location and I'll choose my location for which I want to redirect, Canada. Okay, so for Canada I want all my traffic goes for this website geo.abc.com to this instance. Okay, so this is how you create a geolocation. You can configure or filter your request based on continents or by country. Okay, so we have chosen Canada, and so this is our geolocation. Okay, so geolocation CA to Singapore. Set ID has been set to Singapore. Okay, now we'll go ahead again and create our last, that is multi-value. Okay, so before that, suppose I have another instance, like suppose I have abc.com, okay, which is in hosted on one instance like 202.204.206.208, okay, for a record, and I have chosen a simple routing policy and I'll go and create. So our abc has been created. Okay, now I again go to this, and suppose this abc.com has been configured on another website, on another instance, and I'll go ahead in this 101.102.103.104. okay, I go ahead and create. See, it has given an error, that is, but it is already exists, the record is already exists which we have created earlier. Okay, so for this we'll choose multi-value. Okay, this is, so now let me quickly delete this record. Okay, now our record has been created. Now again I'll go to create record set, I'll choose this domain, and suppose again this website is hosted on one instance whose IP is 202.204.206.208. okay, now this time we'll choose routing policy to be multi-value. Okay, and I'll give set ID to like test. Okay, create, and again I'll go to ABC, and I'll choose the domain to be like ABC, record type would be a record, and again I'll choose another instance like 192.168.1.10. okay, now again I'll go for multi-value. Now let's see if we are able to create it or not. Okay, now you can see we are able to create a duplicate a record for the same domain. How this is possible? This is what multi-value routing policy does. Okay, multi-value answer routing distributes DNS resources or responses across multiple IP addresses. Okay, it's somewhat similar to like load balancing. And suppose if your this server is down, your request will not be hindered and it will go to this instance. Okay, and you can have these kind of record up to 8 instances. Suppose your website is hosted on 8 different servers, and so that you 8 different instances or servers you can say, so you can have 8 duplicate values using multi-value routing policy. Okay, so this is all the routing policy which we have covered, and this is what basically Route 53 does. And I hope you get to understand what is Route 53 and how you can configure all your domains in it.